As the last Battlestar from the Cylon War is being decommissioned, Baltar anxiously watches the news and actually witnesses them get nuked.
What am I gonna do?
My dry cleaning was still in town. Oh, those damn Cylons. Baltar's thoughts are now of escape, but Six says it's not possible. She's planning on dying and just having her memories and consciousness transferred into a new body.
There are 12 models. I'm number 6.
And for the uninitiated, that's not a Voyager reference. That's a reference to The Prisoner. Oh, all those years of carpooling for nothing. Gaeta, that's the guy in CIC, tells Adama about a fleet-wide alert, and soon they're getting ready to take it to the enemy. Sure, they don't have any ammunition anymore, and one of the flight decks now a gift shop, but we've got one thing the Cylons didn't count on.
What have we got?
No, not him. A crew that doesn't know when to quit. When to quit working, when to quit fighting, and of course, when to quit drinking.
We do not know the size or the disposition or the strength of the enemy forces.
But we're guessing their size is big and disposition is unhappy.
Begin a plot of all military units in the solar system, friendly or otherwise.
Yes, sir.
XO.
Sir.
Button up your shirt, for God's sakes. The fighters are already out from after the ceremony. Presumably they're heading back for reassignment, but now they've detected the Cylons and are moving to intercept. Accompanying them is Boomer, who was getting it on with the chief earlier. She's accompanied by her electronic countermeasures officer named Hilo, who was not getting it on with the chief as far as we know. The helicopter-shaped ship of theirs is called a Raptor. Boomer backs off to let the Vipers handle the Cylon raiders coming in. But unfortunately, all the Vipers are running Baltar Vista and are quickly rendered helpless. The raiders quickly annihilate them, but the Raptor's safe from the Cylon software. But missiles will work against any operating system, so there's no choice but to power down and try to coast to Caprica to make repairs. When news starts to trickle down, people on Laura Rosalind's ship start panicking, but she quickly works to get them organized and, most importantly, busy to try to take their minds off the crisis. But things are even worse than she thought. The Cylons haven't made any contact that didn't involve setting people on fire, and the President's unconditional surrender was ignored. Meanwhile, Sarah Palin's first week as President hasn't gone very well. Hilo and Boomer are making repairs in the field, but they've been discovered by the survivors. Hey buddy, ever heard of Kindle? Is it true that Adar bombed us to have a mandate to attack the Cylons? This is all just a plot by corporate Caprica to take over the colonies. Fake. When a city is nuked from orbit, it looks completely different. If we hadn't gotten involved in the first Cylon War, this wouldn't be happening now. There's no consensus by scientists on whether or not these bombings aren't just a natural occurrence. The annihilation of the human race. I'm sure some of you may wonder why it's easy for me to joke about that when I won't even talk about some of the other scenes in this episode. Part of it, I think, is the idea of distance. If these events are so far away, then I am but a humble observer, helpless, detached from the events, no more capable of acting than Princess Leia in Star Wars watching her home planet be annihilated. But when it gets up close and personal, then it ceases to be an act that I'm separated from. You're right in there with them, but are just as incapable of action as before. It would have been easy to portray the nuclear annihilation up close and personal, rather than the distant view that people are being annihilated by the hundreds of thousands every time there's a little flash of light. These survivors gathered around the Raptor. We haven't followed any save Baltar, who at least of all deserves rescue. They are each and every one their own story of a brush with death, but likewise kept at a distance. But this is how it is for our people, the characters we're following. They may be thinking about lost loved ones, but it's all an abstract. No one wants to dwell on the image of a mother or son screaming as they're incinerated. The effect is no doubt heart-wrenching, but it is still a distant thing. Our focus is not on the dead or the dying. Our focus is on survival. Survival seems tenuous for Lee and the ship carrying Laura Rosalind. The Cylons discover and try to bomb the ship, and Lee's craft saves it, only to need rescuing itself because it's so out of date it just shuts down. Burgundy Suit here tries to undermine her for a while, but when he tries to get Lee to take charge, well, Lee's so impressed with how firmly Rosalind has the situation in hand, he just leaves her to it. Teachers are used to managing unruly people, and with the added bonus that you don't have to check your language around the little shits. Things with Hilo and Boomer aren't going as well, as they try to convince the huddled masses yearning to breathe free, or at all, that they can't fit all of them into this vehicle the size of a minivan.
Forward! I'll give you 50,000 cubits to get...
Oh, well, that'll come in handy. Those are all backed up by the Caprica Reserve, right? Which I believe you're all currently breathing in. They agree to take all the children, and to hold a lottery for the last 3 seats. Otherwise the ship won't have the power to go anywhere. The last number, 47. It may not be Star Trek, but Ron Moore is an alumni nevertheless. And it belongs to this lady right here.
I forgot my glasses. I must have left them somewhere. Could you please read this for me?
Look at Baltar's expression. I'm the smartest man alive with a long life ahead of me, and I'm about to be bumped by some old bitch so far gone she forgot she had her glasses sitting on top of her head, just when I thought the end of the world couldn't get any worse. He looks like he's tempted to swap the old lady's ticket for his own, but when Hilo calls out to him, he's so nervous that someone might find out that he was the one who opened the stable for the 4 horsemen that he quickly deflects it to her having the winning ticket. And in an impressive contrast, Hilo decides he's going to stay behind so Baltar can take his seat, believing that a scientific genius is far more important for the human race than just another pilot. An ordinary man sacrifices his life for what he sees to be a great man, while all that supposedly great man has done is thought about himself. His performance actually led to his return in the series. The rest of these people eventually died from radiation sickness, but not only would he not die as expected, but... well, let's just say it's lucky for all of us that the decision that he died too has changed. Is this my bus, young man? They take off. But little did they realize that Mordar the Magnificent stage act included holding his breath for 2 hours in a chest underwater, so he's hoping to make it there from the outside. Oh, still hasn't worked out that catching a bullet in his teeth act. Back on Galactica, they hear that things are even worse than they thought, so they're going to need more ships to get into the fight. Luckily, they have all the old Vipers in the museum they can try to get airborne. Try being the operative word. They managed to get Joker out there, but faster than you can say why so serious, Starbucks has to be pulled back in and reworked, all while enemy ships are shooting at them. She gets out there and helps take them out, but not before a nuke is released and targeting Galactica. Even for a heavily armored warship, a tactical nuke is the sign that you're going to have a bad day. With so much to sort out, Adama's handling one task while assigning Colonel Ty to sort out the damage control team. Oh boy, looks like I picked the wrong week to quit drinking. Lucky thing I didn't. There are out-of-control fires, and the suppressors and water mains are down. Ty finally steps up and orders them to seal off the area and vent it into space. That'll kill the fire. And anyone inside who didn't put on their gear like they were supposed to. Well, that was heartless, Colonel. What are you, a Cylon or something? Blow me, Chief. I'm no more a Cylon than you are. Back on Rosalind's ship, she and Lee listen to an automated message, which is sent out whenever the President, Vice President, and a significant number of the Cabinet are dead. This is called Case Orange, the means of ensuring a succession that is also rich in vitamin C. Despite being 43rd in line, she's now the highest survivor, and so takes office right there on the ship. And she at least manages to pull off the oath the first time. Things are sorted out on Galactica, but Tiro lost over 3/4 of the group that he sent in to deal with the fire. And since the man who ordered it is a drunk who attacks unarmed furniture, he's not private in his displeasure. But Adama stands with Ty, that it was the right call under the circumstances, rather than to risk the fire reaching the fuel pods and then just blowing up the entire ship. Ty's also tracked down a munitions depot so they can rearm for the fight, but it'll require a jump to reach it, on a ship that hasn't made such a jump in 1/4 of a century. To make matters worse, Duala shows up with the latest communication. The Admiral and her fleet have been taken out by the Cylons, so that the ranking officer within the fleet is Commander Adama himself. Now, in case you don't grasp how bad this situation is, the flagship for the commanding officer of the entire Colonial Fleet is a flying museum with 40-year-old fighters, no ammunition, half its pilots are gone, some of its equipment is flying away with the Secretary of Education, and is incapable of dealing with a fire without getting its own people killed. But on the plus side, the Cylons are probably overconfident. President Rosalind receives the message and responds by countermanding Adama's orders to rendezvous at Ragnar Anchorage, and to instead report to her location where she's been rounding up survivors. After the day he's been having, Adama's response is surprisingly restrained.
Is this a joke?
Adama sees this from the military perspective. As long as hostilities continue, it's the duty of the fleet to continue the fight. and that includes getting Lee and his fighter back into the fray. Taking orders during a war from the Secretary of Education seems it'll only make their already low odds even lower. The argument ends with a pair of Cylon raiders showing up and President Roslin refusing to leave. Lee heads below deck to look over some of that Galactica equipment while Adama starts to panic at what he sees on the screen, but Roslin stands firm. As my husband once said, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not finish without a fight. We're going to go on. We're going to Oh, fuck! It ends when the screen goes dead, indicating a nuclear weapon is detonated. Well, Madam President, I think that's just about the shortest presidential term in history, but hey, we'll call it the Afternoon of Hope. Next time, the fallout from Roslin's decision and other nasty beasts.
You're not about to be destroyed by your own bombs, are you? How are you leaving?